You're listening to The Mountain Spirit, a podcast of Christian Appalachian Project, where we explore the stories, voices, and change makers shaping Appalachia. Today's guest is Joe Little. He is the author of Me and Poverty, a journey of inspiration and escape. And he also is the host of the Me and Poverty podcast. His message to the youth of Appalachia is no child is defined by the circumstances they are born into. Joe, we are so excited to have you on the show today. Welcome to the show.
Miss Tina, thank you so much for having me. What an honor to be on your show, to share some of the good news of what we're doing throughout Appalachia, talk a little bit about my book, but bigger than any of that, in my opinion, I get to say thank you to Cap today for the role that you all played in my life. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're so excited to hear your story. As a published author myself, also I'm looking forward to hearing about your journey to being an author and being a podcast host as well. So we don't want to take any more time. We're going to jump right in so we have plenty of time to hear your story. So take us back a little bit to your childhood in Eastern Kentucky. What challenges did you face the most? And how did those experiences influence the person that you become today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to start by saying I'm originally from a small community called Meat House. Yes, that's right, Meat House. Our listeners did hear that correctly. But I also say I'm just from Inez, Kentucky. I was abandoned at 4 years old by my parents. My mother struggled heavily with addiction, mental illness. My dad had his own issues as well. And sure enough, we ended up in the lap of our grandparents. And when I say we, it wasn't just me at 4 years old. It was also my 4 brothers. So for them to take us in and to raise us starting out up Meat House was just such a wonderful blessing. And we struggled a lot. My grandfather, he had a broken back from the coal mining industry. My grandmother was always a homemaker. I often say she didn't have a tax-paying job ever in her life, but she had a very important job of being a homemaker. She raised 5 of her own and took in 6 boys. So,
wow.
Yeah. And I often say my grandparents, like many grandparents in Appalachia, they're magicians. And no, I don't mean literal ones today, although that would be pretty cool. But, I have a friend who's a magician, and he'll do some wonderful tricks, right? And then you'll have that moment where you say to yourself, I just don't know how they did it.
Yeah.
So I get that with my grandparents, and I speak at a lot of grandparents as parents events throughout the state and that sort of thing. So I get to thank them for being magicians. But fast forward, Tina, I ended up becoming a homeless teenager right here in Eastern Kentucky. And we don't have all the time in the world to go into all those details today, but I bounced around quite a bit, stayed probably in a couple places where I shouldn't have been. But when I became homeless, I knew education was going to be my way out. Yeah. I knew it. And I found my way. I stayed at a friend's house that I probably shouldn't have been. He didn't have a dryer at a central heat source. So I would hand wash my clothes and hang them over the only heater in the house, a little tiny space heater that you and I keep under our desks today. Yeah. And, I still went to school every day. Because I knew education was going to be my way out. I didn't tell anyone. I just kind of flew underneath the radar.
Yeah. Until
I became a first generation high school grad in my immediate family. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, went off to Alice Lloyd College.
Yeah.
And got my undergrad degree there. I will always sing their praises. Love them dearly. Found out I needed to dress professionally there at least one day a week before I ended up attending. And that intimidated me because I didn't know what that meant. But I went to a little place, and I want to give them a shout out today, that had a thrift store in our hometown here in Inez, Kentucky, a little place called Appalachia Reach Out. And I think I got 3 suits that day, Tina, for about $20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What a blessing that was for them to be there for me when I needed it most. But yeah, we were, just sum it up, we were born into a neglect, surrounded by addiction. All that's played a role in our lives. And it's been challenging. And a lot of my family still has not escaped that, unfortunately. But I'm so honored to say I had people that came along with me to help me with my escape.
Yeah, that's a powerful story already. We haven't even gotten to the book and why you wrote the book and what happened, but already just hearing that, I'm just excited for what comes next. So you often say, and we said this in the intro, that no child is defined by the circumstances they're born into. When did you first begin to truly believe that about yourself?
Ooh, great question. Great question. So I would say, and this is actually a story in the book, but there was one night I was sitting in a church house. I was about 12, maybe 13 years old, Tina. And I'm sitting in about mid pew of the church and I'm singing along with the choir. My grandparents raised me in church. I'll always be thankful for that. So I know all the old hymns. Scared to death to be up in the choir, though. So I'm quietly singing, and there's a lady sitting in front of me. And I don't know her. She doesn't know me. I don't have a clue who she is. We finish the song, and she turns around. She says, "My goodness, son, you just have the nicest voice. You should go sing with the choir." And this scared boy said, "No way." But my grandmother raised me with manners. So I said, "Thank you, but no thank you." A few more songs go by. And Tina, she turns around again. This time, she's serious and a little intimidating. I'm a little scared. But thankfully, she gets soft in her face. And she says, "Son, God has big plans for your life."
Mm.
She also said, "I have no idea what they are." But she said, "I just wanted to let you know that today. God told me to let you know that today."
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes
And here I am 20 years later, still
Yeah.
trying to live up to this random lady's word. I never talked to her again.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the big moment, turning point in my life that made me, because again, she didn't know me. I didn't know her. I felt like I had poverty just tattooed across my forehead. I was struggling with my self-worth because of where I came from. Why didn't my parents want me? Why didn't I feel loved? But God sent her to me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like to say she was my someone.
Your shirt says, "Be the someone." So
Yes,
tell
ma'am.
me what that means to you.
Yeah. So it means a lot. I will lead with that. But the big overarching theme is, and it's a small subsection in the book, it means stepping in when others step away. And I had a few key examples of people who did that for me in my life. It was the lady in the church that said kind words to me, even though she didn't have a clue who I was.
Yeah.
It was the church pastor that walked alongside me and when I was in my poverty and when I was homeless, and he just loved me with the love of Christ. It was the teacher. I talk in a lot of schools today, and I'll do teacher staff trainings or conferences, and I get to tell people what it means to be the someone. It was the teacher who saw my poverty and still invested in me, didn't write me off as too far gone. Those are some of the big key pieces of what it means to be the someone.
Yeah, I love it. You already talked about being homeless as a teen, but what helped you find hope? Because that has to be a difficult season in life, in particular as a teenager, and with the previous history in your family. So what gave you hope in that season of your life?
Yeah. The big thing was that I knew early on that the only way I was going to make it through, even the prior stuff before becoming homeless, was my relationship with Christ. He was my reminder. I write about different types of deserts in our lives. And we have opportunity deserts, food deserts, of course, as Cap knows a lot about that. But I kind of grew up in a world of opportunity desert. I didn't have a lot of people surrounding me all the time. God gave me little moments with people, like I referenced. And so he placed a couple of mentors in me in my life, specifically in the school systems. I had a principal who I didn't enjoy it at the time, Tina, but he really held me accountable. He saw a spark. He saw potential in my life. He was also my neighbor. And so he kind of had an inside view, if you will, of our life. And he would hold me accountable and say, Joe, is this really going to get you out of your situation? Is this going to get you to where you want to be? So those were some things that gave me hope and inspiration when I felt like I had no one or any opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. So we talk a lot about young people and what life is like for them in Appalachia and the future. So there are many young people that are facing struggles similar to you, and then some, that are having different life experiences, right, in Appalachia. But what message do you most want them to take away when they hear your story? Because your story is a struggle, but it's also a triumph and overcoming on the other side. So what do you want them to take away when you go speak to students in schools and when you interact? And then I'm sure on your podcast as well. What's that message?
That exactly what we said earlier, that regardless where you come from, regardless the cards that you've been dealt, God still has a calling, a purpose for your life. Yeah. That's the big overarching theme. I will say, when I have a mentor program that I'm rolling out this fall for school systems. And in that, I help these students discover their own map. So the name of my book, as we'll talk about, I think, is Me and Poverty, MAP. Well, I help students create their own map. So find a mentor. That mentor can then open up and give you access to opportunities and resources. Hey, unfortunately, you may have some people that come along and help occasionally, but end of the day, no one's coming to save you.
Yeah.
You've got to take this within yourself. God may place people in your life, but you have to want it. So you got to knock on that door for access to opportunities and resources. And then the last piece is you need a plan.
Yeah.
It's not going to just fall in your lap. You got to develop a plan with God's guidance on your life and just get laser focused on that. I often say, you are best equipped to serve who you used to be.
Wow.
So there is such a purpose for the pain. God's revealed that to me, right? So for the pain, the misery, the challenges, there's a purpose for it all. And God's got a purpose equipped for you specifically based on what we've been through.
Yeah, that sounds like a Romans 8:28 moment there. God's going to use it all.
That's right. That's right.
So you mentioned the book. We've mentioned the book. So let's dive into the book a little bit. That's a difficult story to share from your own personal experience. So what was the piece? What first gave you that idea that I want to write a book and I'm going to share these like deeply personal, hard things? And then how did you go about then processing that for yourself to be ready to share that with the world?
So first of all, the book came to me. I was coaching basketball, Tina. I was coaching basketball here in Martin County in Inez, Eden Elementary. I do want to give them a shout out. My son, he goes to Inez, but we still love our Eden family. And so I'm coaching basketball one day. This is after I've gotten my undergrad degree. I've escaped the poverty I grew up in. And, if you're coaching basketball, Tina, for elementary school kids in Eastern Kentucky, you're buying a lot of chicken nuggets. You're buying the sneakers.
Yeah.
Okay. I was doing all those things. And I had a day out at practice. I was kind of patting myself on the back. I was feeling really good about myself. And then all of a sudden, the God we serve just smacks me in the side of the head. Not literally, but he smacks me in the head and he said, Joe, that's great. But what about all of the young people? You only have about 20 on your team. What about all those that you're never going to be able to reach? And gosh, it struck me. And so I started writing. And I also eventually started getting my master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
I take that book and I set it on the shelf. I have about 3/4 of it done. I'll get back to it later after I get my master's degree. And so sure enough, that's what I did. And then lo and behold, I kind of forgot about the book. And we do that often, right? God
Yeah.
calls us to something and then it'll fizzle out. So it took, and I'm a little ashamed to say this, but it took a brother of mine, my oldest brother. He had an alcohol problem, and it took him progressing to opioids and passing away, unfortunately, for me to say, hey, God, it was the reminder that God had called me to the book.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that for another family.
Yeah.
And we had seen so much of it already, right? But my grandparents took me in and kind of tried to shelter us from all of that. But that was very up close and personal. And so I finished the book at that point because I didn't want it to happen to another family. If I could have any role in that, I felt like God was calling me to do it. So the book, not written to youth, the book isn't written to youth directly. It's more written to anyone directly or indirectly that serve our youth. So the teacher, the coach, the counselor, the coordinator, the camp counselor, all of those people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I finally started getting brave enough to share my story publicly after I did a short mentor program in person for a school. And I just saw the need was even greater than I imagined. And I saw a lot of me standing in front of me.
Yeah.
And I said, man, what could I have used when I was their age?
Yeah.
So it's just God took the book and then he's opened up so many doors for us to be able to impact the next generation.
Yeah. So you mentioned before that you knew that education was your way to break sort of the life that you were in. What brought you back to Inez after?
Yeah. Great question. So I graduated with my, let me first say, I was the last graduating class of the old Sheldon Clark building in Martin County. So if you're from the area, any of our listeners today, they'll understand that. So went to Alice Lloyd, got my undergrad, went into child therapy, and thought that's what I was supposed to do because of my family's history.
Yeah.
I came back to live in Martin County, and I was driving to Floyd County. I worked at a crisis unit there for children that were suicidal or self-harming, just some of our most vulnerable kiddos in the surrounding areas.
Mm-hmm.
And did that for a while, but then got approached to join Kentucky Farm Bureau in Martin County. So that was a bit of a career shift, but I was working hard hours at the crisis unit and we wanted to start a family and all of that. So sure enough, we got to then serve our local area through Farm Bureau, which was great. And so that brought us back home into the actual community, as you could say. And we moved around a little bit. I went back to work in higher education at Alice Lloyd. Again, shout out. We love them. And there's a partnership there with CAP, I believe, in a few different ways. But I can remember as a student, and I may be stealing a little bit of your thunder here, Tina, but I can remember being a student and helping unload tractor trailers full of clothing donations from CAP for us as students. Yeah, the full suits and all of that. Just so empowering, and as well as snacks, food for the dorms. It was just amazing that God used you all in that way. But yeah, so did higher education for a while. Oversaw financial aid and admissions, and got to invest in a lot of first generation college students, just like myself, right? And I've taken all of those tools now, and Inez is the home base. and it is home, and we love it here. And we plan to be here for a very long time, and we just branch out from here to everywhere
Yeah.
else
Yeah.
that's willing to have us come speak and invest in either the employees, staff, or students.
Your generosity has a direct and positive impact in the lives of people in need in Appalachia every day. It is the unwavering support of faithful friends like you that make this work possible. Many of our supporters are beginning to plan and envision what kind of legacy they want to leave to support the causes that are near and dear to their hearts. CAP is happy to provide a safe and easy experience for people to create a will and support CAP through non-cash gifts. Through our partnership with Free Will, CAP offers our donors the ability to create a will online and alter it at no charge. Our partnership with Free Will also includes their Smart Giving Suite, which allows donors to give through their IRA, donor advised funds, and stock online, in addition to creating a will for free. In recent years, Appalachia has faced unrelenting challenges, including the pandemic, inflation, and back-to-back natural disasters. You can make a life-changing impact and leave a legacy of hope in Appalachia. To learn more about non-cash giving opportunities, please visit christianapp.org/more ways to give.
All right, so you talked about higher education and education. So let's talk about a little bit about your mentorship series. So you created the Be the Someone. We already talked about Be the Someone, our mentorship series. What, I think you've already kind of alluded to this, but what inspired you to launch that? And then what impact have you already seen in the young people that you get to work with?
Great questions. So, like many of the other things that God's called me to, it was completely ordained by Him, I believe. So I'm sitting in church one day. This has been a couple of years ago, and a lady that works in one of our local school systems, she says, "Hey, will you come here, Joe? Come here." And I'm like, "Okay, what's going on here?" So, but she says, "Hey, I heard you're writing a book, and I know your family history." And I was like, "Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you've worked with some of my family." And she goes, "I have a group of boys that could really benefit from hearing from some other boy that maybe has a similar home life to them.
Yeah.
Maybe they lack a father figure, and but they had a vision for their future and they made it out." And when I say that, Tina, I don't mean a zip code.
Yeah.
It's so much bigger. It's so much deeper than that when I'm referring to making it out.
Yeah.
Even in the title of the book, the escape isn't that zip code. We still love Appalachia. It's where we're called to serve. So I said, I hadn't really considered that, but sure. She said, "Well, just take a few I've read. She read my manuscript. She's like, just take a few parts of that and just pour into the boys." And I'm like, "Okay, yep." It was kind of God just pushing me out of the nest, as He does oftentimes before we're ready, right? But yeah, that was where it was all born. And I started out doing in person at that school. And then, sure enough, I've had a few more schools reach out, and we'll do like a Google Meet with a group of, it doesn't have to be boys. It could be just any student, but a group of students, and same concepts. We'll talk about life skills. What does it look like to break generational chains in your family? Having a brighter future, hygiene, making a good introduction, all of these things that I lacked growing up. I was so clueless, and I had to learn a lot of hard lessons.
Yeah.
It was very embarrassing. And, but hey, God was with us the whole way. And again, I'm reminded it was all for a purpose.
Yeah.
And now I get to put it all together. I'll be rolling out the bigger picture is to be able to scale across the country to anywhere that has a youth that's struggling.
All right. So we talked about some of the folks who've played a role in your life, and you've talked about your faith as well. So let's delve into your faith a little bit more. We know that that's the central part of your story because you started out by giving honor to Christ. And so how did that relationship, your relationship with Jesus Christ, help you overcome the cycles of poverty and brokenness that was really surrounding you in your life? So tell me a little bit about your faith story, because you said your grandparents raised you in the church. I was raised in the church too, and that's different from experiencing Christ for yourself. So, can you
Yeah.
talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, a couple of things just came to me when you asked that. So, um, you know, people can raise you in church, um, take you, make you go, all of those things,
Yeah.
right? But as we know, Tina, there you don't get to heaven one day based on borrowed faith.
Right.
We can't do it. You
Right.
know, we can't just, hey, here, borrow mine and give it back to me up there. It's not the way it works. So I was 6 years old and I'm at a church service and I felt God's tug on my heart. He was knocking. And here's the thing, I have a wonderful relationship with our Heavenly Father. I never had an earthly one. And I found my peace, my comfort of that lack in my life in our Heavenly Father. While even some of my brothers or friends and family, they also lacked, and yet they ran from our Heavenly Father. So those were the big things for me when I had no one. When I was 14 years old, Tina, considering, I got that title. I started my relationship with Christ as a Christian early, but it didn't really grow a ton until I was about 14, and I was in that same dark place that I had been
Yeah.
when that lady in the church turned around and talked to me. But it was that kind lady's words that popped in my head and reminded me that I am loved, that God has a purpose for me, all of these things. And really from that point on, it just continued to grow, and I decided I wanted my own relationship, right? And so I was reading for myself and
Yeah.
just growing in that, and of course going to college where I did, they encourage your Judeo-Christian values as well, and that exposed me some different variations. And man, I saw some other people that were struggling, and yet they still trusted God.
Amen.
My grandmother's faith was huge for me, and to see her struggle, but always honor God. To see and watch her pray, and it was real. It was incorporated into her life. It wasn't just a Sunday morning,
Yeah.
So those are just a bunch of pieces that the big part was gaining that Heavenly Father.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the comfort and peace that came with it by accepting His Son Jesus. And I teach our teen Sunday school at church. And sure enough, God's blessed us with quite a few kiddos over the years now that I haven't taught teens but only a little over a year. I did teach our adult class. And but it's funny, over the last year that God's blessed us with just multiple different students who are in foster care. And again, it's just those confirmations of why I went through what I did. And now I get to look at them and say, hey, and mean it. Hey, I've been where you are.
Yeah.
My grandmother saved us from going into foster care, but CPS was heavily involved in our situation before we went to our grandparents. It's just, God's good, Tina.
Yeah.
God's good.
Yeah. So when you think about your own childhood, and then the young people that you get to mentor and you get to teach, what gives you hope when you think about the future for Appalachia's young people?
I think about a student that I had in one of my recent mentor programs, and we were talking about, what's the dream? What's the future? What's your future goals? What do you want in life? And one looks at me and he says, I just want to be a good dad. And, after I picked my jaw off the floor, I said, man, that's so encouraging. And then I began to talk to him about, okay, to be a good father, to show up, to offer them a better future, you got to take a few steps to get ready for that. And we talked about the concepts of delayed gratification, because we struggle with that, those of us raised in poverty. And that's why I think addiction is very prominent, and high birth rates, and all of these things. But here's the thing, Tina, he got it. He kind of, pun intended here, he subscribed to those concepts. And I'm like, oh man, if we can catch this guy, and then he has a family and he passes this on to them.
Yes.
It's all the hope I need that was fuel in the tank for me to keep going.
Yeah.
And then of course, I spoke at a conference in Lexington not too long ago, and I talked to a lot of our coordinators in our school systems, and got to encourage them to be the someone for their students, right? And to hear some of their stories of how they're helping these kiddos change their family trees. I don't need someone to offer me a little hope. I have it.
Yeah. I can see it. I can hear it in your voice as well. If there's a young person listening to the show today and they feel trapped by their circumstances, what would you want them to know about their potential and their future?
Great question. I think it goes back to sort of what we were talking about earlier, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, because I once saw a sermon where a preacher took a $10 or $20 bill and he crumbles it up. And he asked the question before he crumbled it up. He said, does this clean dollar bill or $10, $20 bill, does it have value? Everybody shakes their head.
Right.
Crumbles it up. Does it still have value? Well, yeah. He steps on it, stomps it, and he says, does it have value? And everybody still says yes.
Yeah.
So I liken that to a lot of our youth. So I can look at them and I'll say, hey, even though you've been through it, even though maybe you feel like that train has hit you and you've had that moment in your life, or maybe it's repeatedly. When I'm working with kids in the foster care system, it hurts me to hear about their court dates and stuff like that, and to be a 12, 13-year-old and to have to go through that, right? But my message to them is there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it will all make sense. It might not be tomorrow, but God has a purpose for everything that you've been through. And I encourage them to seek that out, to be the someone that seeks that out. And God will reveal it to them. I know that to be true. And to encourage them to first get that relationship with his son, Jesus. That's the big ticket. And then I think everything else, he'll work it out for good.
You're familiar with Christian Appalachian Project, so you know our mission statement. Our mission statement is building hope, transforming lives, and sharing Christ's love through service in Appalachia. So when you think of those four words, hope, transformation, love, and service, which one of those stands out to you when you think of Appalachia?
A big one is the service piece. And I've had it ingrained in me, partially because of where I went to college, of course, but we talk about having servant leaders. Mm-hmm. And we talk about the ultimate servant leader and who that was in Jesus, how he came to serve and not be served.
Right.
I think if more people took that approach to service, to ministry, and I think that includes loving others. I think that includes offering hope to others.
Yeah.
So I think if you can have that servant leader mindset, then I think you're going to include all the others.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think a lot of our folks in Appalachia who are running nonprofits and stuff like that, I think they've got that piece, and they're humble and they're kind and they're loving in their approach, and they're offering service along with all those other pieces.
There you go. Joe, it's been my pleasure to have you on today. Thank you for joining the Mountain Spirit podcast today.
I truly hope this isn't the end, Tina, and hopefully we get to work together in some other way in the future.
Thank you so much. Our guest today has been Joe Little. He is the author of Me in Poverty, A Journey of Inspiration and Escape, and also the host of the Me in Poverty podcast. Thank you for listening to the show today. You can catch new episodes every Tuesday and invite your friends to listen too. You all know you can follow the work of Christian Appalachian Project on all our social media channels and find the show at christianapp.org/podcast or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If you like the show, be sure to follow, subscribe, and join us for our next episode. This shows your support for the show, and it also helps others find out about our amazing guests. Until next time, this is the Mountain Spirit. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep lifting up Appalachian